I'm mad at myself for even doing this. I'm looking at the Bengals schedule. I see a lot of games that could potentially be wins. 9-8 is not out of the question. But at which point do you just recognize that every week you're putting a clown nose and clown makeup on when you're trying to talk yourself into this team?
Of the Big Cat's career. Is he going to take it to the house? His old house. He sure is. A pick six, and he flips the game on a huge play.
A heavy-set fella rumbling a long way toward pay dirt. Am I describing Leonard Williams' pick six against the New York Jets, or me going back for a third helping of Thanksgiving turkey? Welcome to the NFL on Fox podcast presented by Verizon, the NFL powered by Verizon 5G. I am your host, Dave Helman. I hope y'all had a happy, a healthy Thanksgiving weekend. I hope you enjoyed wall-to-wall football coverage as much as I did. Goodness gracious, starting Thursday morning, going to Sunday night. What a wild weekend in the NFL, in the football world in general, really. College football really delivering on Saturday as well. It is my favorite time of year. The weather is colder, the games are more meaningful, and we have got a fantastic show for y'all as week 13 once again delivered. We had Thanksgiving chaos, we had Black Friday chaos, because that's a thing that we do now, and a Sunday full of fantastic action, maybe highlighted by Leonard Williams' pick six, a crazy game between the Seahawks and the Jets that we will definitely get to later in the show. So let's just get into it. As per usual, we don't need to stand on ceremony here. So much to talk about. You know the drill. Typically, we call it our Sunday Six, the six big storylines that we think you need to know coming out of the weekend. We're going to call it the Holiday Six because we do have to go way back. We got things to talk about from Thursday and Friday, some pretty big results, teams clinching playoff berths earlier in the weekend. It's a lot. So we're calling it the Holiday Six, and we're going to get into it. Let's start the show. Let's go. Let's start this Holiday Six off with one of the best games of the day right here on Fox in the early window. The Minnesota Vikings edged the Arizona Cardinals 23-22 to preserve their reputation as at least arguably the most stressful team in the NFL. We talk so much about the Kansas City Chiefs and the way it always comes down to the wire for them. It's not much different up in Minneapolis. This is a team that's had 8 of its last 9 come down to the final 2 minutes of action. 7 of the last 9 decided by one possession, but they keep finding ways to get it done, as they did against the Cardinals. The Vikings up to 10-2 after the win. They are, by record anyway, the best wild card in the NFL, just continuing to keep pace with the Lions. It's a hard pace to keep up with the Lions, with one of the best records in the NFL, and the Vikings managing to stay right there at their heels. It's really impressive considering what a challenge it is every week. And this might have been the toughest one of all. Minnesota couldn't find the end zone in its first 6 possessions. They were down as bad as 19-6 in the third quarter of this game before they finally roared to life. They scored touchdowns on 2 of their final 3, and the big one at the end, inside the final 2 minutes, they drive 70 yards. The go-ahead touchdown comes with just 1:13 on the clock. Very poetically, it's Aaron Jones, had fumble issues again early on Sunday, lost the ball twice in the early going in the game. He catches the game-winning touchdown from Sam Darnold, and it's a sequence, I'll be honest, you could see coming. Not to second-guess Jonathan Gannon too much, but this felt preordained to me when the Arizona Cardinals opted for a field goal from the Minnesota 4-yard line. They'd had the lead for the vast majority of the second half. It's 19-16 with not a lot of time to play. The field goal makes it 22-16. I get it. You give yourself the whole field to defend. You can't lose or tie the game on a field goal. But on the 4-yard line with a mobile quarterback like Kyler Murray, had a chance to put this game away and take a 2-possession lead with not a lot of time on the clock. Field goal gives the Vikings purpose. You know that you need a touchdown to tie or win when you're trailing by 6, and wouldn't you know it, they play aggressive. They go for it on 4th down with the game on the line. They get it. They go and score the touchdown to take the lead. It's an interesting conversation, and that's why I started with it when I caught up with Joe Davis and Greg Olsen after the game. Well, guys, I don't think it's fair to say that it's the reason the Cardinals lost this game, but it's another example of this very interesting trend. Greg, you laid it out so perfectly in the game. They opt to kick a field goal from the 4-yard line. It winds up biting them in the end. I mean, is this gaining in momentum where we get to a point where teams rethink the way they want to play these situations?
You know that it's going to be a question that Jonathan Gannon will get post-game.
Listen, the conventional wisdom is, yes, it makes sense in a 2-minute, granted there was more than 2 minutes,
Yeah.
but the point being, in an end-of-game scenario, it's better to be up 6 and make you score a touchdown to beat me versus a field goal to tie me or beat me. But remember, the thing is, a touchdown beats you in both scenarios, up 3 or 6. But the fact that you're up 3 and a team has that, like, okay, let's just get in field goal range first. If we can score, great. But at the end of the day, I can at least tie you. If I'm Arizona, my chances of losing in regulation go up the second I'm up 6. You score a touchdown there on 4th and goal from inside the 5, you're up 10. The game's over. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting conversation. Like I said, I'm interested to see if teams start to adapt to it a little bit more. The other big takeaway from this game is just, look, I'm sure the Vikings would prefer for it to not always be this stressful, but man, this is just a team that does not blink. Like how valuable is this type of confidence when you can just keep pulling games like this out of the fire?
I know you said the equation to winning close games, but another element to it is like the soft skills to it, the belief that they seem to have. They get in these tight games and they're like, yeah, we're fine, we're going to win.
Yeah, there's 100% a mental confidence component to this. Like, hey, we've been here before. This is no big deal.
Yeah.
We expect to win. We're not hoping. Hope is not a strategy, right? It's we expect to win, and I certainly think that's the belief on the entire sideline for the Minnesota Vikings. And listen, they're 7-0 this year. 2 years ago, they were 11-0. Big reason why they hosted a playoff game, obviously lost to the Giants. But that's been a big thing around here in the 3 years that Kevin O'Connell's been in charge, and it obviously continues to work.
Yeah.
Another very fun 4th quarter for you two. Let's keep the trend going, guys. I appreciate it.
Into that. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
I called the Vikings a stressful team at the top, and if you have a short memory, I think it's worth it to just go back, because you see 10-2. We know they're a good team, but man, it has been by the skin of their teeth a lot in the back half of the season. We already mentioned it. Sunday, Arizona, you're down 19-6 in the second half. This looks like an L for the vast majority of the 4th quarter. They buckle down. They get a big stop in their own red zone. They take it from there, scoring with 73 seconds on the clock. The week before that, looks like it's going to be a routine win. They lose a 24-10 second half lead to Chicago. It goes all the way to overtime before Sam Darnold pulls that one out of the fire. I'll give them the credit of pointing out they beat Tennessee in relatively stress-free fashion. A week before that, though, 3-turnover game, 2 of those turnovers in Jacksonville's end zone. They hold on with a chance of losing at the buzzer to Mac Jones to win 12-7. And even in week 9, they play with their food. They trade field goals and turnovers with Indianapolis before finally putting the Colts away at the 2-minute warning in a 21-13 win. That's how we've gotten to these 5 straight wins since that losing streak to the Vikings and the Rams. All of that said, I'm A-okay with this Vikings team. If you think back to 2022, they went 13-4. They had to deal with fraud allegations that entire season. But the difference is they were winning every game by the skin of their teeth. And when they were losing, they were getting destroyed. All 4 of Minnesota's regular season losses in 2022 were by 2 or more possessions. Some of those as bad as 37 points. Green Bay beat them 41-17 that year. This Vikings team might leave it until the end, but they're not getting beaten like that. They took the Lions to the wire. The Rams game that they lost on a short week was within reach up until the final 2 minutes. This team is a tough out. And like I talked about with Joe and Greg, I think all of that stress, all of that testing your resolve, I have to believe it pays off in the end. I think this team is going to be a tough out, even if they do have to go on the road in the postseason. Let's talk about the Cardinals side of this game in the full context of the NFC West, because that's going to be the second item on our Holiday 6, is the most difficult division to get your hands around in the entire league. We've been saying the NFC West is heading for an entertaining finish. Well, it got even muddier on Sunday with Arizona losing, as well as a big loss by the San Francisco 49ers in Buffalo on Sunday Night Football. We'll get to that, but this has to feel like a huge missed opportunity for Arizona, and it stings on multiple levels. Feels like ancient history that the Cardinals went into their bye week at 6-4 on top of the division in full control of their destiny. They've now lost 2 games in a row coming out of that bye, and this game, not one you would say they should have lost. Next Gen Stats gave them a 91% chance of winning with 4 minutes to play. And I hate to harp on that decision to kick a field goal. Maybe it doesn't work out, but they were so close to being able to put the Vikings away inside the final 4 minutes. Flag down in the red zone that put them back behind the sticks. Maybe if that doesn't happen, you can score a touchdown and put this thing away. Instead, they lose their second straight. And it sucks on an entirely different level because I thought the Cardinals played the game they wanted to. They ran the ball very effectively. They got Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr. involved. They forced an early turnover. It was there for them. They flustered Sam Darnold all day. They sacked him 5 times. The Vikings had a hard time getting into the end zone until the very end of the game. This wasn't a case of the Cardinals being off, not being able to run the ball, not being able to do the stuff they wanted to do. Just felt like they let this one slip. And now they're in a situation, it really feels like this next week against Seattle is a do or die situation for Arizona. They play their return game against the Seahawks in week 14, 2 games against Seattle in 3 weeks. It feels like a gotta have it game for winning the NFC West. Because if they win it, they're back on top of the division thanks to tiebreakers. If they lose it, they are 2 games behind the Seahawks in the standings, with the head-to-head tiebreaker going to Seattle in a sweep. Stranger things have happened, I guess. But if the Seahawks lose this game, if the Cardinals lose this game to the Seahawks with so little time left in the season, they are going to have their work cut out for them. As we said, and I think that's the theme of this, and it's why I wanted to talk about the NFC West, is you can see the standings here if you're watching. I'm starting to think that the only path to the playoffs for the NFC West is to win this division. It is starting to look like a wild card is going to be hard to come by. You can thank the Washington Commanders for that. It looked like they were in free fall, looked like they were in trouble, but they now go into their bye week having blown out Tennessee. They raced past the Titans 42-19 on Sunday. They go into their bye week at 8-5. That puts them 2 games up on everybody in the wild card with just 4 games to play for Washington. So as bad as it was there for a stretch for the Commanders, they get their week off finally feeling like they're in a good place. And can anybody in the NFC West or anywhere else overcome it? Not saying impossible, starting to look unlikely. None more so than for the San Francisco 49ers. We talked about it. Sunday Night Football, an absolute, they were 7-point underdogs in a snowy situation up in Buffalo. I expected them to lose this game, but an outright demolition at the hands of the Buffalo Bills. Sometimes I think we make too much of weather and preparation for weather in pro football. This truly looked like a case where the 49ers were not ready for the elements. It snowed all weekend in the Buffalo area, lake snow. They had to get people to dig the stadium out of the snow. Bills looked completely unbothered, and the San Francisco 49ers, no good footing, looked like everybody was wearing the wrong cleats. Nobody looked comfortable or confident tackling. Next thing you know, this game was out of reach as they went into halftime. And if that wasn't bad enough, Christian McCaffrey exits after just 7 carries. 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan said afterward that McCaffrey injured his PCL. It could be a season-ending injury. So it's been a season from hell. It was an off season from hell. It was a training camp from hell. And the season from hell continues for the San Francisco 49ers. They fall to 5-7. Their playoff probability has dipped down to about 12%, according to the models. 3 of their last 5 games are against teams that are at 500 or better. and that includes the huge home game coming up against Detroit. So to right the ship, probably going to need to beat the best team in football. Just feels like their season is on the brink. We will get to the Bills side of this later on in the show. Don't worry. Haven't forgotten the big night for Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. But here in the NFC West, another team that is feeling like its playoff odds are slipping away. To continue that theme, it sure felt like the Rams season was teetering on the brink in New Orleans on Sunday afternoon. A loss to the Saints would have dropped them two games off the pace. They've only managed one win streak this entire year. This is very much a team that's traded wins and losses, as you might guess, by the 500 record. Felt like something might be slipping away, but they avoided that fate. Not something the Cardinals and 49ers can say. Avoided that fate with a little bit of help from their defensive rookie of the year candidate when it mattered most. Last minute of the game, Derek Carr drops back 4th and 3 from the Rams 9-yard line. Rams lead 21-14. Touchdown might send this game to overtime, but we will never know because Jared Verse rips around left tackle, blows this play up, thought it was a strip sack. They called it an incomplete pass. Doesn't matter because the upshot is the Rams escape from the Superdome with a win. Had a chance to talk to Kenny Albert and Jonathan Vilma about a game-winning effort from Jared Verse to keep this Rams win intact. Guys, I know he's only a rookie, but I got to say it feels very fitting that when the LA Rams needed a play from their defense, it was Jared Verse there to give it to him.
Indeed. Jared Verse, we actually called one of his games earlier in the season. Very impressed with his effort, the way that he gets after the football, his aggressive nature. Love that he's relentless, and he's really setting the tone for this Rams defense. Even though he's a rookie, he knows what it takes to be a great defense, and he's setting that. He's doing it by example.
You know, I'm not going to pretend this is the prettiest win of Sean McVay's tenure, but we associate the Rams with fireworks and this high-flying offense. It's got to be encouraging for them to win it in this fashion with the run game, physicality, defense, kind of a departure from what we're used to from them.
Well, they barely had the ball in the first quarter. They ran only 3 plays. Saints did a good job of keeping the ball out of the hands of Matthew Stafford and the Rams offense. They were shut out in the first half in the regular season for the first time under Sean McVay, but they put together 3 touchdown drives following halftime.
Yeah, I love the way that they rebounded. They were resilient. And I always go back to the early Sean McVay days with Todd Gurley. And he was always emphasizing running the football. They have a guy in Kyron Williams, not as explosive as a Todd Gurley, but yet very effective. So they lean on him. They lean on the offensive line. And then they get the big plays when they have to, come away with 21 points in the second half and get the victory.
Cannot understate how big this is to stay apace in the division race as well. Guys, as always, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
So if the theme for the day in the NFC West was either disaster or near disaster, why stop now? Even the big winners of the day flirted with disaster in their own right. And to be clear, the Seattle Seahawks, clearly the big winners, they get their 3rd straight win Sunday in a second half rally past the New York Jets. They are on top of the division. Like I said earlier, a real chance to make some hay if they can sweep Arizona next week. But man, this felt like a team that might have been looking ahead to Arizona against the New York Jets because second half rally does not do justice to what we saw early between Seattle and New York on Sunday. Seahawks and Jets, 37 combined points in the first half, 4 total turnovers in the game, 274 kick return yards, most of those coming from the Jets because they took a kick 99 yards to the house against Seattle's special teams. 2 blocked kicks in this game and a pick 6. So with a stat line like that, I naturally had to talk about it with my buddies on the call, Adam Amin and Mark Sanchez. Well, guys, I don't know if they hand out any type of award for this, but easily the most chaotic game of Sunday. At what point did you realize it was going to be that type of afternoon?
We were feeling the inebriated nature of this game, I think, about midway through the first quarter. And then we really felt it in the second after we had seen a couple of fumbles on kick returns. We saw a kick return touchdown in this game. And when Leonard Williams takes a pick 6, 92 yards, I feel like the fun nature of the game shows itself throughout.
There was a lot of action. understatement of the century right there, but it was a choppy game, and we felt it early in between the breaks. We're like, one of these teams has to figure it out. Somebody's got to stabilize and find a way to capitalize on some of these mishaps from the other team, and they took their turns trying to lose this game, it felt like. And then finally somebody kind of made it happen, and that happened to be the Seahawks. Crucial road win. This is a big one for him.
Leonard Williams said he had a chip on his shoulder from not winning Defensive Player of the Week last week. I mean, two sacks, both coming on the final drive with the game on the line. Not to mention the touchdown that you referenced. I think maybe we can arrange to get it to him this week, right?
He definitely earned it. I mean, this was the type of performance that I think we're starting to see a little bit more consistently from the Seattle defense. This is 3 really good games, I think, in a row, or at the very least 3 games in a row where they've made the critical plays. They did it against San Francisco, held Brock Purdy in that offense, granted somewhat shorthanded in check. They absolutely stymied what was a red-hot Arizona offense last week, and then critical plays when they needed them today against the Jets.
You're exactly right, and this has all come after that bye week. It sounds like they've really got this defense especially to mesh and to gel together, really understand this system, putting guys in that they feel like they're comfortable with, whether it's Tyrese Knight, a rookie at linebacker, or even Ernest Jones, who they acquired from Tennessee during the season. I mean, those are big-time changes, and now you get a healthy Leonard Williams attacking the quarterback. This team might be a problem down the stretch.
And don't look now, but, I mean, this was a well-timed rally because the Cardinals lose. We'll see what happens with the Niners and the Rams, but Seahawks all of a sudden sitting in a really good position in the NFC West. Guys, it was fun. It was chaotic. As always, I appreciate it.
I think that's been our MO this year, Dave. We appreciate you, buddy.
Absolutely. Seattle with the nice recovery, but hopefully they learn from Arizona's miscues that, hey, you're on top of the division today doesn't mean anything for the future. There are 5 weeks left and 5 games in the NFC West. I am hypothesizing to you, there's just one playoff spot in play for these 4 teams. You better go win the division if you want to be in the postseason. Third item on this holiday version of the Sunday Six is our Victory Unlocked. It's brought to you by Zillow, agents, tours, loans, homes. And in the statement game opportunity of the week, Philadelphia Eagles know exactly how to unlock a victory. When you have a battering ram named Saquon Barkley, you just keep ramming it at the gate until you break through. That's exactly what they do. They beat the Baltimore Ravens on the road, short little bus ride down the interstate to Baltimore. They're heading back with a 24-19 win, as hot as any team in the NFL. And like I said, they did it as old school as you could possibly want. They just kept handing the ball to Saquon Barkley. And I love the persistence. 23 carries, 107 yards for Saquon. Perfectly fine day. The stat line sounds nice, but I love the way they got it. Saquon Barkley, 12-yard gain on his first touch on Sunday afternoon. Didn't have another 10-yard gain until the 4th quarter when he had 2, including the 25-yard touchdown that really felt like it broke this game open. Eagles went up by 2 scores with 8 minutes to play. And while the Ravens did rally to make this a 5-point game, it felt like Philly was in control from there. Saquon just churning away 1 4-yard gain at a time, persistently wearing down the Ravens defense until there's a break. It's exactly what happened. It's like a boxer, man. I love this style of football. It's so primal. It goes back to the origins of the sport. And to their credit, the Ravens like to play this way too. They just didn't do it as well as the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, but you just take body blow after body blow and you keep coming back. And eventually the other guy is going to get tired. And that's when Saquon Barkley can go for 25 or more in the 4th quarter of a game, really put this thing out of reach. And a credit to the Eagles, the way they managed to hang in there, because it did not feel like it was going to be that type of game in the early going. Eagles offense, notoriously slow starters. They have been all year. They failed to gain more than 21 yards on any of their first 4 possessions. They punted 4 straight times. And man, the Ravens started this thing like gangbusters. They jumped out to a 9-0 lead. Lamar Jackson had 4 explosive passes in the first quarter alone. Eagles were losing receivers in the middle of the field left and right until all of a sudden nothing was doing. Ravens, 2 explosive passes the rest of the way after those big 4 in the first quarter. And the Ravens go 8 straight possessions without a touchdown in this game. It's their longest stretch without a touchdown in any game this season. So not only did the Eagles have the patience to hang in there with the run game, and credit to Jalen Hurts as well. I thought he had his stat line, not anything that's going to blow you away statistically, but continuing to find A.J. Brown, continuing to use the short passing game without Devontae Smith to keep the chains moving when the running game wasn't there. He had a stretch with 7 straight completions, just using his talent at receiver and tight end to his advantage, kept the Eagles offense alive, and Vic Fangio certainly in the running for assistant coach of the year, especially after the way the Eagles started this season. They have become so impressive. They did not let Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson's running ability kill them, which is hilarious because the Ravens still ran for 166 yards, but you'll take that all day if you can limit the back-breaking explosive plays. Lamar had one of those, but it was really after this game was out of reach. Secondary continues to dial in and do its thing. The box score is going to tell you that Lamar played great, and he wasn't bad, but the Eagles, after a shaky start to this game, really battened down the hatches and made life difficult on the Ravens. And again, you got that battering ram, and eventually Saquon Barkley is going to break through. It's such an impressive formula. And mind you, this was a game without Devontae Smith, like we said. So the Eagles offense, less explosive than what we're used to. They still managed to go down and beat the Ravens at their own game. I've been saying it for a few weeks now. I'm just going to keep saying it louder. There's only 1 or 2 teams in the league that I feel better about than the Philadelphia Eagles. I hope we get a chance to see Philly play Detroit at some point in the playoffs, because that is going to be cinema. And we can already kind of look forward to that. There's plenty of season left, and knock on some wood, Eagles fans. I know what happened last year, but between offense and defense, this group is such a tough out. They very much made a statement in Baltimore. They all of a sudden look like they are running away with the NFC East, even with Washington getting a win on Sunday. It's just a matter of how high is their seed? Can they catch the Lions? Because I absolutely think they are going to play a big role at the top of the NFC standings in the playoffs. Now, having said all that great stuff about Philly, and I mean it, I guess I'm going to keep, beating the drum for the Philadelphia Eagles being a Super Bowl caliber team, but understanding that this was a really nice win for them. Is it time to have a conversation about Justin Tucker? Has it been time? Like we've talked about it. We've kind of whispered about it and made uncomfortable eye contact when talking about Justin Tucker. Is it outright time to wonder if the Ravens need to do something about their potential Hall of Fame, their perennial Pro Bowl kicker? To hear it from them, they're not going to. John Harbaugh said after the game he's got no plans to move on from Justin Tucker. I don't envy the position that he's in, because how do you release a franchise icon who's been such a big part of so many wins and so many great seasons and has a Hall of Fame resume? Having said that, if you didn't watch, Justin Tucker missed 2 field goals and an extra point in a game that Baltimore lost by 5. And that is a theme for the season. Justin Tucker, it sounds crazy to say, but just 19 of 27 on the season. This has been a year-long problem for him. Every week, we keep waiting for him to round into that form where you can trust him from anywhere on the field, and it's just not coming. And the uncomfortable truth is a lot of these misses are not from crazy range. He missed a kick from 47 yards against the Eagles. I went back and looked it up. He's got 8 misses this year. Only 1 of those has come in a win. 7 of his 8 misses have come in games Baltimore lost. Missed against Kansas City in the season opener in a game they lose by 7. Missed from 56, which admittedly is a long kick against Las Vegas, but they lose that game by 3. 2 misses a couple weeks ago against Pittsburgh in a game the Ravens lose by 2. Against Cleveland, a miss from 50 that would have tied the game in the fourth quarter in a game the Ravens ultimately lose by 5. And now Sunday, you miss 3 different kicks for a total of 7 points in a 5-point loss to Philadelphia. I'm not trying to to throw dirt on the guy. Like I said, I don't envy the position of having to make that decision about such a legendary player. And I'm sure John Harbaugh does legitimately believe that Justin Tucker can dig out of this. But man, you're 8-5 now. All of a sudden, the Steelers' lead in the AFC North is starting to look commanding. And your kicker is a big part, even if you don't want to put all of those losses on Justin Tucker, because they lost the game to Cleveland for about a dozen different reasons. I'm well aware. They lost the game to Las Vegas for about a dozen different reasons, but there are at least one or two games where your kicker not showing up for you is a huge part of the Monday morning story. And this is going to be one of them. And if we were whispering and making weird eye contact about Justin Tucker before, we're absolutely having a dialogue about it now. And it's fine if the Ravens want to trust in him. I probably would too. He's earned that benefit of the doubt. But with each passing week, it gets harder to say that when you look at the margin for error between winning the division or not, or having a higher seed or not, or going home early in the playoffs or not. It's an uncomfortable conversation because of how much he's accomplished. Is a very real conversation. As long as we're talking about the Ravens, let's just stick in the AFC North for the fourth item on our Sunday 6. Stop me if you've heard this before. A lot of points were scored. A lot of yards were piled up, and the Cincinnati Bengals eventually lost. The Pittsburgh Steelers get the better of them in a 44-38 thriller. Bengals just trying to make history for the most prolific offense in the NFL that can't win games. Let's start on the winning side, like I like to do, though. Pittsburgh Steelers. We talked about it with Dave Damashek on the preview show. This is a team that typically wants to drag you down in the mud, make you play AFC North football, win a rock fight. But we are seeing and continue to see the evidence of change with Russell Wilson in the starting lineup. Russell Wilson, hello, 76% for 414 yards. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception comes early in this game. I would argue George Pickens got mugged on Cameron Taylor-Britt's eventual pick 6 to open this game up. So I don't even hold the interception against Russell Wilson. Just the third 400-yard game of his career, second highest total of his career. You got to go all the way back to 2017 when he was really at his peak in Seattle, when he was an MVP candidate type of quarterback. That is how he played against Cincinnati, and we're going to get into it. I know the Bengals defense is worse than atrocious, but this is what we're talking about when I say it looks like the Steelers have a higher ceiling, and I don't just say that because they're 9-3, all of a sudden sitting pretty in the AFC North. It's because we haven't seen this style of football from them in a long time, and if you don't believe me, I can back it up. Sunday was their first 40-point game since the 2018 season. It's their first 500-yard game since that wild 2020 playoff loss to the Baker Mayfield Browns. They just haven't been capable of producing offensively at this clip since Ben Roethlisberger was their quarterback. That 40-point game came all the way back when Antonio Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster were on the same team. That's so long ago, it feels like it never even happened. It's been a long time since we've seen a Steelers team capable of trading touchdowns, racking up yardage like this. And I don't think it's a coincidence. Mike Tomlin was waiting in the tunnel after this road win to embrace Russell Wilson and congratulate him because, of course, Mike Tomlin's perfectly happy winning every game 16-13. He loves nothing more than that style of football. But it's got to be nice to know that you have a quarterback that can get you a win even on a day when you're going against Joe Burrow and you give up 38 points on defense. It just feels, I don't want to say it's a new era in Pittsburgh because Russ is on a 1-year deal. He's an older quarterback. Can't really afford to think about the big picture right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they are capable of so much more than any team since at least the 2020 season. You should be very excited about that if you're a Steelers fan, even if the road ahead is still plenty difficult. On the flip side of this, like I said, I don't know what I was expecting from the Cincinnati Bengals because we even made the jokes. They're capable of doing this. They're capable of scoring all these points. They still find a way to lose the game. It's exactly what happened. I don't think I realized how the Bengals were flirting with history. And I got to shout out my friend Ben Baby of ESPN for this one. Joe Burrow, with a 309-yard performance, 3 touchdowns, was on fire again. Becomes the 6th quarterback in NFL history to average 275 passing yards with 30 touchdowns and 5 or fewer interceptions through his first 12 games. Just the 6th guy to ever do it. The other 5 all had a winning record through 12 games, and 4 of those 5 eventually won NFL MVP. So it's not a stretch to say Joe Burrow is playing like an MVP, but he falls to 4-8 on the season in the wake of this most recent gut-wrenching loss. And you could probably guess, yeah, the Bengals are really good at losing games because their defense can't get anything resembling a stop. But I just wanted to go back and look to see just how bad it is. In their 8 losses, Cincinnati's averaging 28 points, which would be the 5th best total in the NFL, or the 5th best average, I should say. 28 points per loss, 375 yards of offense in their losses, which averages out to be 6th best in the NFL. How do you lose all 8 of those games? Well, their average of 34 points allowed per loss is the worst in the league. 400 yards of offense allowed per loss, 2nd worst. Truly abysmal. You can blame defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo. You could blame the Bengals front office for the failure to add talent on the defensive side of the ball, let guys walk out the door over the last couple years and not hit on the draft picks to replace them, not do enough in free agency. You can blame Zach Taylor, the head coach, for, I mean, they're 4-8 with one of the best offenses in the NFL. I would be willing to lay blame at damn near every single person's feet, except maybe Joe Burrow, which is ironic because he did turn the ball over 3 times in this game. I do think a silver lining worth pointing out, Steelers, 38 points allowed, but I'm not even sweating their defense when you've got a pass rush that can sack Burrow 4 times, including 2 strip sacks, one of which gets returned for a touchdown. And then you get an interception from Dante Jackson as well. Even in a game where you're allowing close to 40 points, defense doing more than enough to put you in a position to win. I'm exasperated with the Cincinnati Bengals. This, at the very least, should be a team that is in the thick of the wild card hunt, much like the Baltimore Ravens are. The Ravens have plenty of flaws of their own, but barring some sort of miraculous turnaround, and no, I'm mad at myself for even doing this. I'm looking at the Bengals schedule. I see a lot of games that could potentially be wins. 9-8 is not out of the question. But at which point do you just recognize that every week you're putting a clown nose and clown makeup on when you're trying to talk yourself into this team? Because it's been the story all season long. They've had so many opportunities to dig out of this. And every week we get up here and talk about how they lost in the latest heartbreaking fashion. So if you're willing to ride this bandwagon all the way, you might as well, because it's Cowboys, Titans, Browns, Broncos, and then a rematch with the Steelers from here. Theoretically possible. I refuse to risk any more brain cells waiting for this to happen. It is mind-numbing stuff from the Cincinnati Bengals. Like I like to say, though, it's not the Pittsburgh Steelers' problem. We talked for weeks about how we would learn so much about them when the division schedule started. Well, they're 2-1. The loss came in a snow globe. Not really sweating that. 9-3, showing multiple different ways to win. We know they can win the ugly, grinded out games. We now know they can win these sorts of games, which is a very exciting thought when you start to look ahead to January. For the 5th item on our Holiday 6, we figured we'd be remiss if we didn't actually recap the holiday. 3 football games on Thanksgiving. Want to make sure we hit on the biggest talking points from the actual Thanksgiving games, even though here on Monday morning, that feels like a lifetime ago. But some very important things did happen. Namely, we do have a head coaching opening. If you like the NFL enough to listen to this show, I'm guessing you're well aware Matt Eberflus was dismissed Friday after the Chicago Bears lost 23-20 to the Detroit Lions in the most agonizing fashion I think imaginable. I mean, the Bears have had some miscues this season, but don't let the passage of time, don't let the extra leftovers that you've eaten, don't let how long the holiday weekend felt distract you from just how bad that was. 36 seconds to play, Bears knocking on the door of field goal range, right around the 35-yard line. Caleb Williams sacked with 36 seconds to play. The Bears have a timeout, and they opt to take it with them. They opt not to use it. They don't run another play either. They just sort of stand there discombobulated. Caleb Williams trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Nobody on the Bears sideline seemingly knowing what's going on. The Detroit Lions wondering, like, is this how the game's going to end? It is. Caleb throws incomplete he throws the ball with 6 seconds to play, and the clock runs out on the Bears. I get it. I get why you don't want to burn that time out, Chicago, but how do you not have another play call coming in? An NFL team should be able to get another play, get set, and run it in 12 seconds or less. The ball should have been snapped. Even if you don't call the timeout, the ball should have been snapped with at least 18 to 20 seconds to play. Or you call the timeout and say, well, this is unideal, but we have a rookie quarterback who's probably floundering in this situation. Let's call a timeout and regroup. And our next play will just have to go to the sideline, or we'll kick a long field goal to try to tie this thing up. There's 18 ways that this game could have played out other than the way it did. And the only thing more surprising than that is that it took the Bears until after Matt Eberflus's Friday press availability to make the decision, pull the trigger, end this era. So we figured it was coming. We figured it was coming as far back as the Hail Mary loss to Washington, but the Bears' job officially open. We're going to dive into all of this in greater detail on our Tuesday show, because I do think there are a lot of conversations to be had here about where the Bears go from here, how they got here, who they might look to hire. So a bigger conversation coming about the Bears opening, but the Detroit Lions escape with a Thanksgiving win for a change. Been a minute since they've had one of those. 11-1, sitting pretty on top of the most competitive division in the NFL. And then right after that, the Dallas Cowboys making moves of their own. Maybe not the most riveting game in the world, but they do beat the New York Giants 27-20 to claw back up to 5-7. So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah, last time I checked, it was something like a 4% chance that the Cowboys put any sort of playoff run together. But after the season that they've had, I'm guessing a 2-game win streak feels pretty good. And for both of them to come against division opponents, to be able to look down at the Giants and Commanders and say, we might suck, but we can still beat you, I bet it feels pretty good for everybody in Dallas. Rico Dowdle announcing himself felt like the best running back in the room heading into training camp. It took the Cowboys longer than I understand why for Dowdle to start getting the Lions' share of the carries. I mean, he's had a good role in this offense all season long, but his carry count jumping up into the 70 percentile these last 2 weeks. And he's making the most of it. 112 yards against the Giants and a touchdown. Very little surprise that he was Tom Brady's LFG Player of the Week for Thanksgiving.
My LFG Player of the Game today, great performance, Rico Dowdle. Man, what a game by you. 100 yards, the first time a Cowboys rusher has a 100-yard game in 26 games. What opened things up for you today?
Those guys up front, man, you got to give all the credit to them, you know. Getting it started, just get a little bit of space, and we was able to make it go. Started off strong early and ended up getting back to it in that third quarter and paid off well for us.
Yeah, how have you guys kind of remained staying positive? You dealt with a lot of adversity this year. Dak's been out, CD was out today. How have you guys remained positive through this really tough stretch?
Like you said, just adversity, man. It's been man down, man up for us, and that's the mentality we've been going in with, and everybody practices and preps well, and just got to stay ready, and everybody been ready for when their opportunity came and made the most of their opportunity. So that's what we've been dealing with, we was hit with, but the guys have been able to handle it well, and got to keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. You got some tough stretch ahead. You got You got, I think, Cincy up next. What's it going to take for you guys here in about 10 days to get a win over those guys?
Get this rest, like you said, 10 days. So get this little mini bye weekend, get our bodies back, and come out here with the same game plan. Go out there and try and put it together, running it, throwing it, and playing a complete football game, all three phases, special teams, offense, and defense. I think if we do that, we'll be able to get the win.
Awesome. Hey, I had a first bite of my turducken today. Do you even know what a turducken is? You see Micah and all those guys eating one?
Yeah, I seen them over there eating, man. Yeah.
See if you can get a bite. It's pretty good, man. Congratulations to you and your team. Way to go. Really happy for you. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, sir. You too. Appreciate it.
Every game that I broadcast, I award the LFG Player of the Game to that one player who makes me say, let's go.
Last item on our Holiday 6 is that we've got some attaboys to hand out because it still feels a little early in the season to be saying this, but we officially have two playoff teams. The Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs punched their ticket to the postseason with 5 weeks left to play, just illustrating how dominant they've been for most of the year. Let's start with the most recent one, the snow game. I said we'd get back to the Bills. I didn't forget about you. Bills watched the Dolphins lose to Green Bay on Thanksgiving night. They know that means they can clinch the AFC East with a win against the Niners. They set about doing that in style, crushing San Francisco 35-10. They win the AFC East for the 5th straight year. On top of that, they become the first team to clinch its division with 5 weeks still to play since the 2009 Indianapolis Colts. Indy started that season 14-0 and reached the Super Bowl. So it really is rarefied air to be able to lock up your division this early in the season. I'd say a large part of that is due to Tua Tagovailoa missing as much time as he did. Regardless, the Bills hang another division banner. Like I said, they do it so convincingly. Ironically, San Francisco scored first in this game and held the lead for a solid 7 minutes. Never felt like a contest after that. It was all Buffalo. Bills were up 7-3 after the first quarter. It was 21-3 at the half. Second half of this game might as well have had a running clock. And I think what we need to highlight is big number 17, who, congratulations on the engagement, by the way. Josh Allen got engaged over his bye week and then set about furthering his MVP case. And he did it in as much style as possible because my man scored 4 touchdowns. That's no big deal. It's his 4th game this year with 4 or more touchdowns. He's had 6 with 3 or more. He's had 8 with 2 or more. Josh Allen is used to scoring multiple touchdowns. But not in this diverse of a way. 2 touchdown passes, 1 touchdown run, and the coup de grace, if you watched it, a touchdown reception. Yes, a reception, because in the low red zone in the second half of this game, he throws a short comeback to Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper being pushed backward, forward progress being stopped. Did not look like a planned situation, but he saw Josh Allen running up on him and lateraled to him. Josh takes the ball 7 yards into the end zone. It is a 7-yard touchdown, although not scored as a catch. So this is what the box score says. Take it up with the NFL. Incredible night for Josh Allen to do it in those elements where, I mean, watch San Francisco, watch the difficulty they had doing anything. And Josh Allen managed to find the end zone in all of those different manners. 27 touchdowns on the season to just 7 turnovers. This Bills team that was widely thought to be taking a step back without Stephon Diggs has 10 wins. They've clinched up the division with a month to play. Jared Goff probably has something to say about this, but in light of the Baltimore Ravens losing on Sunday, and I get it, maybe it's not fair. The award should be about more than just wins and losses, but Lamar Jackson losing, the Ravens falling to 8-5, the Ravens in a fight to try to stay in the division race with what the Steelers are doing. I think Josh Allen is your MVP frontrunner right now, or at the very least, he's eyeing up Jared Goff as his main competition, and he gets to play Jared Goff in a couple weeks. Bills against the Lions just 2 weeks from now. That might be the game to decide the MVP. It was Baltimore, San Francisco on Christmas night last year. That was the game that really cemented Lamar as the MVP. if the Bills can get a win against the Detroit Lions, or even if they don't, as long as the Bills keep this thing on the rails for the last 5 weeks, if they win 12 plus games and Josh Allen keeps doing stuff like this with a night like that, I think he's got a very good chance to win his first NFL MVP. That is how I'm feeling as we head out of week 13. The Bills were not alone, though. Their longtime nemesis, the Kansas City Chiefs, they clinch a playoff berth, not the division, not yet, but they clinch a playoff berth with a 19-17 win against Las Vegas on Black Friday. Of course it's 19-17. Spread was 12.5, but of course it comes down to the final possession. Of course it was stressful. And it's not just that the Chiefs won by 2. It's that the Raiders were in field goal range with a chance to spring another upset on a holiday. Beat the Chiefs on Christmas last year. They were looking at beating them on Black Friday when all hell breaks loose. Fumbled snap exchange between Aiden O'Connell and his center. Chiefs recover. Of course, there's drama about it because the refs are signaling false start, but then they say it's an illegal shift and it doesn't negate the play and the Chiefs can decline it. Everybody's pissed. Oh my God, they're rigging it for the Chiefs. If anybody was rigging things for the Kansas City Chiefs, I'd like to think they wouldn't let it get to almost losing to Aiden O'Connell. There's got to be a way you can make it less stressful for the Kansas City Chiefs. And I think they're pulling this stuff out of the fire by sheer want to, by sheer will. 11 wins by an average of 5.7 points per outing. Just 2 of their 11 wins weren't in doubt in the final moments. I know everybody in that Kansas City locker room has got to be worn the hell out. You know what? They keep finding ways to win. 10 straight years in the playoffs. And even though the Bills beat them to it, they can clinch the AFC West as soon as next week with a win against the LA Chargers. It would give them a season sweep over LA. It would give them a 5-0 record in the division. Nobody would be able to catch them. They'd have 12 wins. So despite all the stress, despite all the drama, the Chiefs can lock up a playoff home game as soon as next week. Of course, still right in line to get the bye week in the AFC, no matter how stressful it is. I get it. If you're tired of it, I do get it, but I don't think it's Chiefs blood magic. I think it is an extraordinarily experienced team that just knows how to, at the bare minimum, not fall apart when all hell is breaking loose, which, as we've seen from the Raiders, as we saw from the Chicago Bears on Thanksgiving, it's not always as easy as it sounds. They are the champs until somebody can prove that they're not in a meaningful situation. I, for one, respect the hell out of it. Even if I would be able to look away from a Chiefs game, Black Friday, putting up Christmas decorations, going out, see a movie, spend time with the fam. Chiefs are a 12.5-point favorite. It would be nice to not be riveted by the end of a Chiefs game, but I guess it's not a bad thing being perpetually entertained by the 2-time defending champs. That does it for the show. That does it for the recap. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills are our first official playoff teams. Over the next 5 weeks, we will find out the rest. Before we get to that, though, we're not quite done. We still do have Denver, Cleveland, Monday Night Football. We will have a recap of that on Tuesday. As I said, Carmen Vitale is going to join us, as she often does. We're going to break down the Bears' job opening, the pros, the cons, what to know, who they might target. Fun discussion about a very interesting situation in Chicago. We'll have our power rankings like we always do. And then we are officially into the final month of the season. It is December. It's go time. It's crunch time. So much to be decided. So much more drama to come, which is hard to even fathom with the season that we've had already. I can't wait. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not, so the show's in your feed. It'll be there Tuesday. It'll be there Thursday. We're getting to the good stuff, y'all. Find us on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you're ready for everything as we get closer to the postseason. Until then, hope you had a happy and healthy holiday weekend. Happy Thanksgiving one more time. I appreciate it, and I will talk to y'all real soon.